والفجر وليال عشر والشفع والوتر والليل إذا يسر هل في ذلك قسم لذي حجر ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بعاد إرم ذات العماد التي لم يخلق مثلها في البلاد وثمود الذين جابوا الصخر بالواد وفرعون ذي الأوتاد الذين طغوا في البلاد فأكثروا فيها الفساد فصب عليهم ربك سوط عذاب إن ربك لبالمرصاد فأما الإنسان إذا ما ابتلاه ربه فأكرمه ونعمه فيقول ربي أكرمن وأما إذا ما ابتلاه فقدر عليه رزقه فيقول ربي أهانن كلا بل لا تكرمون اليتيم ولا تحاضون على طعام المسكين وتأكلون التراث أكلا لما وتحبون المال حبا جما كلا إذا دكت الأرض دكا دكا وجاء ربك والملك صفا صفا وجيء يومئذ بجهنم وجيء يومئذ جهنم يومئذ يتذكر الإنسان وأنى له الذكرى يقول يا ليتني قدمت لحياتي فيومئذ لا يعذب عذابه أحد ولا يوثق وثاقه أحد. يا أيها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you all for coming to our Muharram lecture series titled Qur'an, Morality for Contemporary Society Through the Eyes of Imam al-Husayn. This year's lecture series is sponsored on behalf of the marhumin displayed on the TV screens. Please can we recite a Surah Fatiha for these and all our marhumin. Al-Fatiha. If you would like to donate towards the Muharram program or sponsor a program in the name of your marhumin, you can do so by cash or card at the entrance foyer by scanning the QR code on the TVs. Also, a quick health and safety note. In case of an emergency, the fire exits are located at the back of the chapel, the main entrance outside the chapel, and the double doors by the dining room. Tomorrow night's program will begin at 8 p.m. with Dua Kumail, lecture by Dr. Imranali Panjwani, Matam, Ziyarat, and refreshments. We will also be having a parallel children's workshop on the 12th, 13th, and 14th of July for children in reception to Year 6, alongside the main Muharram programs. These workshops will focus on creating a mural on the lessons learned from Imam al-Husayn and Surah Fajr. To register your children's attendance, please visit ami.is/Muharram-kids. This year also will be collecting funds for a Gaza appeal via Beta Charitable Trust to provide essential food supplies, medical aid, and clean water to those suffering in Gaza. We urge you to donate generously, and donations can be made by cash or card by the entrance foyer. During these 10 days, we'll also have a special offer on Sheikh Arif's Islam and God Centricity series of books, which are available for sale at the entrance foyer. There's 5 for £40 or £8 each. Now, can you please invite Dr. Imranali Panjwani to come and deliver his lecture? But before that, please can I invite you to all move as far forward as possible. Salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين صلوات please. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب صلوات please. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brothers and sisters. Inshallah, Allah bless you all and bless England. Inshallah. I think, yes, please tell me the score in between as well. Inshallah. Uh, so I think that's why there's half the audience here. Some people are watching the match. Yes. And I know you're here, but please at least don't watch the match on your phone. You can follow the score, but like don't put on live stream. Thanks. Otherwise, like faido nati pachi. Like I'm giving this majlis, inshallah. Salawat, please. By grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are inshallah going deeper and deeper into the Prophet's experience of revelation. And I hope so far that I have been clear that this sulukun nuzul, or this manner and way of revelation from the Prophet's personal experience, is not just for academic purposes. It's not just there to bore you. It's something that I am sharing from my heart, because this is what I have been researching over the last sort of 3-4 years, that in going into the Qur'an, looking at the various tafasir, this has made me closer in understanding the depth of the Quranic message, not just its meanings, but also its relation to the other sciences like fiqh and falsafa and mantiq and many others, and how we make laws. And I think for us, and inshallah for our children especially, that how can they build an enduring relationship with the Quran and our beloved Prophet, peace upon him. And I know that that sounds very simple, but I think that is the objective of life. Why are we identifying as Muslim and not something else? And that's a common question today by youngsters, of course, that, I can be a humanist, I can be a Buddhist, I can mix my different spiritualities. And yes, of course, there is a commonness amongst religious traditions. Nobody's denying that. And sometimes what we may call Allah, other people may use a different name. That is there, and you can use the Quran, you can use Sufi literature to substantiate that. But of course there are differences, and there are differences in practices and rituals. So we have to ask this question: why is this particular prophet meaningful to my existence in the way that he approached Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And I think if we can teach that to ourselves, then I think we would find greater meaning in our life, inshallah. Salawat. Now, the focus of this lecture, again building on from the last few lectures, is now to uncover the process, or that suluk, that way of the Prophet's soul when the Quran is coming down upon him. Now, so far, all that I have really shared with you are snippets of that. I've said, for example, that Angel Jibreel comes down and repeats Iqra 3 to 4 times. Prophet says, Ma akra'u, what do I recite? We said yesterday that the Prophet is commanded to restrict or use his intellect to restrict his desires. He's also given the freedom in his character, that khuluq, that disposition to make decisions, to shape his life, but also with the guidance of Allah. And as we posed the question yesterday, he's also that tab'ul gharizi, that innate nature that he has, how he is brought up, DNA and genes as well. Now, when we take all of this as a package, and the verses are coming down to the Prophet, peace be upon him, what is his goal? Now, in Surah Al-Fajr, inshallah, we will devote a lecture to this, but in Surah Al-Fajr, towards the end, Allah does use this phrase, which you have all heard. Ya ayyuhatun nafsul mutma'inna. O well contended or well pleased soul. Return to Allah, pleased, and Allah being pleased. This nafsul mutma'inna, this contented soul appears to be the goal of the Prophet. Allah is addressing him, saying that you, the contented soul, you have the capacity, you have the potential to elevate your nafs to not only become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but to uncover those layers which you previously found difficult to uncover. And the example that I have been giving, and we're trying to go deeper, is, for example, when the Prophet may feel anxious and distressful because he's receiving that verbal and physical abuse by those around him. So what is the barrier to him to reach that contented soul, that peaceful soul? Well, arguably it is removing that anxiousness and worry, and that anger you feel to retort back, that anger you feel of cursing back. All of these things were there in the Prophet's soul, all of them. And they were there in other Prophets' souls, like Prophet Yunus alayhi salam, like Prophet Musa alayhi salam. It's all documented very clearly in the Qur'an. So at the beginning of Surah Al-Fajr, you find that command of that hijr, or that question, I should say, that, is there an oath for the one possessing intellect? That can you control yourself? Can you control your desires? And then various parables are given about Ad and Thamud. And then towards the end of the surah, these very beautiful verses come that Allah is just showing the beautiful potential that the Prophet can reach by having a contented soul. So my humble objective in this lecture is now to fulfill that gap from that questioning stage and the Prophet trying to adjust his intellect and character to now reach this contented soul, calm self, godly self. Salawat. And to do that, we have to deal with a particular reading of the Qur'an in the way the Qur'an was revealed. Now, I just want to begin with you to a quote from Allama Tabatabai rahimahullah alayhi in his book, The Qur'an in Islam, Part 5. Okay? He says, just about a year after the death of the Prophet, peace be upon him, the war of Yamama took place, in which 70 of the reciters were killed, and the Khulafa conceived the idea of collecting the different chapters and verses into one volume. That's what I said in the last few lectures. Do you remember that, everybody? Or not? Shall I remind you? A quick reminder, I said that from Abu Bakr onwards, including of course Imam alayhi salam, that different mushaf, there was a different copy that they collected to compile the verses of the Quran. Remember? And I said there are different copies and different orders of surahs. Okay? Or surah. Now the Khulafa, feared that should a future battle take place and the rest of the Qur'an be killed, the whole Quran would disappear with them. So they were really worried that if all the reciters are killed, what would happen to the Quran? So this is one of the motivations for compiling the Quran in a written form. Thus, on the orders of the Caliph, a group of the reciters from amongst the companions, including Zayd ibn Thabit, collected the chapters and verses written on tablets, bones, and date palm leaves, and kept in the Prophet's house, in the house of reciters. Right? So a side point here, that writing wasn't a norm in the Prophet's society. according to many scholars, you can see Shahid Mutahari, Ayatollah Nasir Makarim Shirazi, many others, they give this figure that only 17 people at the time of the Prophet could read and write. Only 17. That's it. So, we sometimes have a feeling that the Prophet should know everything and have all the skills, but reading and writing wasn't a norm in that society at all. It's like today. I mean, yes, we can write, but what will happen in 50 years? Will people be able to write? Perhaps not. Everybody will be going like this every time on the iPad, right? And maybe we won't be able to read. Maybe we'll have a chip in our brain or a chip here and information is downloaded. Maybe that's a reality, right? I was discussing with Adam yesterday about Terminator 2. He reminded me of Skynet, right? Those of you old enough to remember the movie. So is that future going to happen, where we become semi-robots or the AI becomes so advanced that we not only become subservient, but we actually lose our natural skills, right? But in the Prophet's time, the reason this is important is because when you say writing on stones and tablets and these things, yes, because for them, very few people could actually read and write. So for them to compile the Qur'an was actually a huge achievement. And whilst people may say, but there was this different type of mushaf, salawat please, Allahumma salli ala there was this different type of mushaf copy, or that the orders have changed, and people might say, oh no, that's something controversial. That's not controversial when you look at the historical context. Hopefully it now makes sense to you what they're trying to do. And that is wonderful, because it shows Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also allowing human beings to take control over the dissemination of the Quran and the learning of the Quran. Okay? Allama Tabatabai continues. So what did they do? They started writing on these date palm leaves and stones and tablets. And they produced several handwritten copies of the complete book. So this is our own Shia scholar saying this. All right? They then sent copies of this compilation to all areas of the Muslim domain. That the chapters and verses were not revealed in one place. So he's saying that, look, the chapters and verses were not revealed in one place. He says, rather, the verses were revealed in stages over a period of 23 years during the Prophet's mission. And this is authenticated not only by historical evidence, but also evidence from the various verses of the Qur'an. The last point I think is very important, right? That he is basically saying that we have to appreciate the way in which the Quran was revealed in various places, in various times and circumstances of the Prophet. Now, I'm emphasizing this because in Talkhis al-Tamheed by Ayatollah Hadi Ma'rifa Marhum and other Ulum al-Quran books, you will find this discussion there between Inzal and Tanzil, right? My respected scholars, colleagues would know this. They would in their Ulum al-Quran studies. So sorry for that. It's reminding something simple. But Inzal and Tanzil is a discussion about what? Was the Quran revealed at once, or was it revealed in stages? So Inzal, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Inna anzalnahu fi laylatil Qadr. Yes, indeed, we revealed it on the night of Qadr, the night of power or destiny or decree. Or was it revealed in terms of Tanzil, which is in terms of stages? Now, there are different opinions here, which is quite interesting. So some people say that, look, because of the word of Inzal there, that shows that the Quran came down at once, and it came down to the Prophet's heart. And others say, no, Tanzil is there, and I'm going to read some verses for you. It was revealed in particular stages, right? Why is this important? Look at these verses. Salawat, please. I don't like to use my phone. As you can see, I have all these notes. I'm very old-fashioned. I didn't have time to write the verse of the Quran. So sadly, I have to go into the phone. Yes. Okay. So I gave you one verse from Sutul Qadr. Same thing in Surah Al-Dukhan, that the Quran was revealed in Laylatul Mubarakah, on the blessed night. So you think, okay, it's come down at once. But then in Surah Al-Bani Israel, verse 106, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and it is a Quran that we have divided, that you may recite it unto mankind or humankind at intervals, and we have revealed it وَنَزَّلْنَاهُ by successive revelations. نَزَّلْنَاهُ. Okay? So then you have other verses that are clearly talking about stages. Now, how do we reconcile this? Now, one reconciliation, is that Allama Tabatabai rahmatullahi alayhi does say that, well, you can say the Quran came down in terms of basit, in terms of a very simple way, or a simple essence, a simple composite. It came down like, like the concept or the essence of Quran did come down in the Prophet's heart. That came down at once, anzalnahu, but then Allah filled in the details. So it came down once in the Prophet's heart, like the essence, the concept, or the notion of the Quran. And then after that, Allah revealed the various details and information that we have been doing in these lectures, like various verses of Surah Al-Fajr that was recited, or Surah Al-Qalam. Then you have certain verses based on his experience. That is a nice sort of reconciliation. But there is another verse in the Quran which I feel makes more sense. Okay? And this is in the camp of those that reject the Quran came down at once, and reject also this reconciliation that it came down even in terms of the essence. Actually, they believe no, it came down bit by bit. The verse is, yes, here. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Surah Al-Furqan, verse 32. وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَوْلَا نُزِّلَ عَلَيْهِ الْقُرْآنُ جُمْلَةً وَاحِدَةً كَذَلِكَ لِنُثَبِّتَ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ وَرَتَّلْنَاهُ تَرْتِيلًا. Very nice verse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the faithless, kafaru, the faithless, or those who disbelieve, say, why hasn't the Quran been sent down to the Prophet at once? Why didn't it come down at once? Then Allah says, so it is that we may strengthen your heart. Strengthen your heart with it, and we have recited it to you in a measured tone. I find that verse, according to the methodology of this Sulukun Nuzul, at least for me, I find it resonates more with the Quranic structure, that the Prophet needed the verses for his own psychology and nafs, for him to reach this nafsul mutma'inna. That's what I humbly find to be more consistent. But it doesn't matter, you can choose any opinion, no problem. At the end of the day, what is important is the Quran is admitting that the Quran did come down in stages, and particularly for this strengthening of the heart of Rasulullah, which is what we are trying to examine. Because when we have that paradigm, then you can analyze the Imams. Because Imams are not prophets. Imams do not receive wahi in terms of revelation. And they are not spreading anything new. So when we ascribe things to them, right, and we say, no, Imam Hussein had to know everything about Karbala, or we say he had to know this detail, or he had to have this strength, that is an incorrect starting position, because that is not the position of the Quran. If the Prophet needs to be strengthened, how can you say the Imams don't need to be strengthened? It doesn't make sense. See that? That's why I'm focusing on this Quranic paradigm. Salawat, please. And the other reason I'm beginning with this discussion about how you think the Quran was revealed, it does affect then the way of how we view the Prophet and what attributes we give him. So if you say the Quran was revealed at once, now see, trace back into your childhood, or your madrasa days, or going to the community and what you hear. Now, I know, mashallah, we are from different communities, all right? But I don't know, I'm just taking a risk here. I don't know if we thought the same way. I don't know. If you say that the Quran came down at once, then you're basically saying that the Prophet had the intellectual and spiritual capacity automatically to receive the Quran. Then if you say that, then it means he had full knowledge instantly, and he could have full knowledge. Maybe he could have ilmul ghaib, and he was already at full strength and full capacity, and he is, he nothing can blemish him. Nothing can chink that armor. Do you see how everything then falls like dominoes? Then at the end, if you try to tell someone, no, actually Prophet didn't know something, or Prophet felt anxiety or weak at a particular point, then people start to panic. And no, you can't say that, or you can't say that the Prophet had any limitation. So I'm going from just ulumul Quran perspective, that the theory that you undertake has implications on theology and the way we conceive the Prophet. Would you accept that or not? And would you say that my judgment was correct? That is that the portrayal of the Prophet and Quran that we have been given? I know, mashallah, everybody's Irani, Iraqi, Khoja, Indian, Pakistan. Do you feel that's fair or no? Yes? Yes, everybody's saying yes. Okay, YouTube people, everybody's saying yes. Because I don't know what they think. Maybe they say no. Okay? And sorry, I just want to give a football paradigm. What's the score, by the way? Anybody? Sorry? 1-1. Okay, I don't know the scores. I have to focus on the majlis. But no, but I'll just keep to 1-1. Keep that aside, okay? But I do want to give a football parable here, okay, of Gareth Southgate, if you don't mind. So if you always choose the same formation and you play defensively, and the other team scores, and then you're reacting, right? And we're all saying, why don't you change the formation? Maybe you will see the football match differently. It's the same thing with the Quran. Quran is giving us different formations, by the way. We can do 3-4-3, you can do 3-5-2, 5-3. You can choose your formations as long as you obtain your result, right? So why do we have to limit the Quran's formation? Okay, Quran is giving these different theories for us to reflect and for us to get closer to this beautiful heart of Rasulullah. Salawat, please. So I want to give you a case study of how this process occurs, at least in the time that we have. And again, this is from Surah Muzammil. I have to, the tashdid there, okay? I've chosen maybe verses 1 to 12. It's a short surah, only verses 1 to 20. But I want to tell you the tafsir and especially the asbabun nuzul behind these verses. See now, just with this surah, if what I am humbly sharing with you is making sense. Okay? Allah says, Ya ayyuhal muzzammil, qummil layla illa qalila. Nisfahu awinqus minhu qalila. O you who have wrapped up in your garments, rise to pray in the night except a little, half of it, or lessen it a little. Okay? As I have said, and I don't want to repeat, this is addressed to the Prophet. In all of the tafsir, there are different interpretations of what these mean. Some say that it's very difficult to say what does qalil mean and what does sort of awinqus mean. Does it mean like a third of the night the Prophet prayed Salatul Layl? Was it less than a third? Was it a tenth of the night? Was it a sixth of the night? And was it simply pray what is easy for you? All of these interpretations are there. The main thing is, which was what I find interesting, is actually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is training the Prophet. Prophet has not prayed this Salatul Layl before. He has not got up in the night before like this consistently. And Allah is saying, look, I'm giving you flexibility, full flexibility. Just get up in the night. Now, if you get up for 5 minutes, no problem. If you stay up for 30 minutes, no problem. If you stand up for 1 hour, no problem at all. It's your choice. Do what is easy for you, do what is within your capability, but stand up in the night. Because by standing up in the night, you are certainly going to remove that anxiety and you will reach that contented soul. The first point here is this, that ultimately this is a model of how we should approach our rituals and our obligations, and how we teach our children, how we teach converts, and how we teach a baligh person. This gives you the model. There is more I can say, but we even have the very famous story here in Majmul Bayan and many others. That's a poor guy tried to pray Salatul Layl and he stayed up the whole night. The whole night. And he didn't know sort of how much he should pray. This is both in Shia and Sunni sources. And he stayed up the whole night and he found it difficult. And even the Prophet tried to extend this to the community and some of them found it difficult. It was then that he restricted Salatul Layl to some people, and that is when the 5 daily prayers were revealed actually. But what we find is, how come the Prophet was trained with flexibility? So he did fall in love with God because he didn't put pressure and burden on his soul. So I'll pose you some questions now, right? If you take a baligh person that comes into, that is, for example, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, whenever period occurs for a girl and whenever maturity is there, or for a boy, some of the teenage years, 13, 14, 15, 16. So should somebody pray automatically, 5 times a day when they're not used to it? How do you nurture the person? How do you nurture them to fall in love with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And then when people reject the prayer or don't pray, and later in their life they don't pray, and they don't want to come to mosque, or they say, oh, I didn't pray in my teenage years, I've got so much qada now. I remember my marhum grandfather, grandmother telling me these sorts of things, like they didn't know something, or they didn't know the details of the salah, or maybe they were not told properly, though they're just told to pray. Now do you see how problems result? That ultimately a baligh person has no conception of rituals, unless of course they are being trained early on. I think that is possible, by the way, you can do that. But my point is that this paradigm can affect our fiqh as well, because you can start to say that there is an adjustment period, there is a grace period, there is the adjustment of the soul for the obligations, and not only for the baligh person, that as they do little by little, maybe one salah, and gradually could take some months, could take 1 year, 2 years, but the objective is they do what the Prophet did. The Prophet ultimately fell in love with Allah. Look at this verse, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَاذْكُرِ اسْمَ رَبِّكَ وَتَبَتَّلْ إِلَيْهِ تَبْتِيلًا. And remember the name of your Lord and devote yourself to Him with an exclusive devotion. When do we find exclusive devotion in our salah? How many times are we distracted? What has happened that we haven't found the devotion? In my small research, it's because we were not trained in this way. We totally missed that paradigm of approaching worship that the Qur'an is telling us. That is an example of a baligh person. What about a convert? A convert that comes into the religion, right? And look, my respected teachers would be able to inform me better. Maybe we do have qawaidul fiqhiyya, and we have these secondary rules that you can solve these situations, right? Or usulul amaliya, this procedural principle. You can kind of solve these things and say somebody didn't know something, or you don't want haraj on them. You can solve problems like this and say, okay, you don't want hardship and you don't want a person to find distress in the religion. But another way to solve it is from the Quran itself. When did Allah say to put pressure on someone in this manner that they don't find value in the obligations? And so when a convert comes into the religion, they're coming from what? Maybe no religion, maybe a different religion altogether, maybe their sense of spirituality is something very different. So when do you say that they are accountable? When do you say there is taklif? When do you say that the spirituality is at the right level? So all I'm saying, I'm not trying to sort of say that this is exactly the answer. I'm just simply trying to tell you that I think that the Quranic discourse gives us a beautiful paradigm simply to reflect on how we should approach our rituals with meaning. And I think that's the most important thing. The salah should mean something to us. The sajda should mean something to us. And when we are raising our children, we want to tell them the value of what they are doing. And this example is a nice tool to use for children. That look how the Prophet approached. Try your best. And but come to a balance. It's not like we're saying, at the end of the day, you leave the rituals. No. But you come to it with quality and not quantity. Because I would like, for my children, inshallah, your children, we would like them to raise them as the best servants, Allah, to be better than me, inshallah. Salawat. A second example I'll give you from this surah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أوزد عليه ورتل القرآن ترتيلا, and recite the Quran in a measured fashion. In a measured fashion. Now, according to the ahadith, in all of our tafasir, they say that the Prophet, when he was standing in Qiyam, now again, there is a nice discussion here as to what was he reciting. Was Surah Al-Fatiha revealed at that point? Perhaps early on it wasn't, and maybe he recited whatever verses came down to him and dhikr, and maybe later on Surah Al-Fatiha was revealed and then that was incorporated in the salah, all right? But when he was standing, when he recited the verses, he recited it in two ways. One was in a very slow fashion. Maybe like, mashallah, dear brother recited, but he recited in a way that was with reflection. I don't know, it's sort of awzid alayhi, I don't know. I'm just giving an example. Whatever it was, he didn't rush the recitation of the Quran. And two, the Quran, when he recited it, he started to memorize it, right? Because that is what he needed to do. He started to memorize it, and of course that is with the assistance of Angel Jibreel and the lutf of Allah. That memorization then and the meanings became inscribed in his heart. So when we have a hadith from Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, salawat please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. When we have these ahadith that the Quran has these several layers, well, the Prophet, it appears, was uncovering layers through recitation of these words. And even then through the recitation of the huruful muqatta'at, the disjointed or separated letters like Noon and Alif, Lam, Ra. So whatever these mystical symbols are, and there are different theories about that, whatever he was reciting was clearly vibrating in his soul, right? Again, I'm not an expert on comparative religion and what other religions do, and please, you can enlighten me. But there does appear to be a connection between recitation, chanting, reflection, meaning, and the soul elevating. That I can tell you. That I can tell you with certainty. I know there's a connection there, but maybe you try it and you tell me, okay? But this kind of approach is indicated in our ahadith. And Majm al-Bayan has about maybe 3, 4, 5 ahadith there explaining the Prophet's approaches for your reference, okay? Then we come to this verse. Inna sanulki alayka qawlan thaqila. Surely we will make it light, or make to light upon you a weighty word, or soon we will give you a weighty word. What is that weighty word? It is the Quran. So look at why does he say sanulki? The scene here indicating on something going to happen in the future. Why saying soon we are going to give you this? See the second theory that I gave you about the revelation of the Quran, that it came in stages to strengthen the Prophet's heart. Now hopefully it's making sense, right? Allah is preparing the Prophet to receive the later parts of the revelation of the Quran. We are going to give you this. I'm just preparing you for the exam. I'm just telling you to revise. I'm telling you it's coming, right? This is how, very gentle kind of communication, by the way, from Allah to the Prophet, not expecting anything in an instant. But what I find further interesting is this. Salawat, please. This is from Majmul Bayan. This is his interpretation, right? He says that this weighty word was revealed to the Prophet, which changed his state when revelation occurred, to the extent that he sweated, and when he was riding, he had to make the camel kneel down and was not capable of walking. And this is from a hadith, actually. It is, yes, it is from Harith ibn Hisham, and I think it's from Aisha. It involves, yes, Aisha relays what the Prophet was experiencing in the revelation. It is narrated that a man asked the Prophet, Prophet of God, how does revelation come to you? Even at that time, people are asking, by the way, it's not a controversial question. People are asking, they really want to know, like, Prophet, like, really, what's happening to you, right? So the Prophet replies, well, sometimes the angel comes to me with a sound like that of the ringing of bells. Now, that's why I mentioned vibration here to you. Again, I'm not an expert in this. Recitation, vibration, sound, huruful muqatta'at, maybe there's a connection here, okay? But he says, the angel comes to me with the ringing of bells. This form of revelation is the hardest upon me. So it's very hard upon the Prophet. Then the angel departs from me while I have memorized everything. So exactly what I said from the Qur'an, this is there, substantiated in hadith. So he departs from me when I've memorized everything. At other times, the angel appears and talks to me in the form of a man. That maybe you've heard, I'm sure, from the community. And this is the easiest for me. When the man talks to me, this one for revelation is easiest upon me, right? Aisha says, I have seen the Prophet while revelation came to him on an abnormally cold day, and then as the angel departed from him, his forehead was pouring with perspiration. In Al-Mizan, Allama Tabatabai says the same thing. He says, we have extensive riwayat about this. The Prophet sweating, the Prophet perspiring. Okay? We also in the Qur'an, that what does Allah say? Had this Qur'an come down on the mountains, it would have shattered to pieces. What it tells us is, yes, there was a physical change, a psychological change, a spiritual change that you could see in the Prophet. And it was hard upon him. And it was hard for him to take. And he did have to adjust his soul, and he did have to adjust his body. And that appears is the transcendental and spiritual experience. So, with this paradigm, what is now happening in this surah? You find, as I said at the start of the lecture, the process of revelation, the manner of revelation, that suluk is there. That this is a process where the heart is elevating. And the last thing, which is about the character. I mentioned character yesterday. I said that, yes, he has that tabul gharizi, that natural disposition, but he also has freedom to acquire things. Now look at what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. He says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Inna nashi'ata layli hiya ashaddu wat'an wa aqwamu qila, Inna laka fin nahari subhan tawila. He says, surely the rising by night is the firmest way to tread and the best corrective of speech. So Allah was now correcting the Prophet's speech and how to talk. So he knows I shouldn't respond in this way to someone, and I should respond in a better way. Or I should be patient here, and I should respond here. I always struggle with that, and maybe you struggle as well. Like when we're having a conversation, you want to make sure that I'm not going to offend somebody, or you want to make a joke, or you want to speak naturally, but you want to speak in a way that is wise, and you're not trying to be arrogant, and you're not trying to commit a sin. So Prophet is being taught very early on how to do this. And why at night? Why is this night important? As we also said yesterday, well, in the daytime, it says, Inna laka fin nahari subhan tawila. You have in the daytime a long occupation. You're busy in the day. That's what we said yesterday, that the Prophet is a shepherd and a laborer. Poor guy is busy in the day. So Allah says, look, I know you're busy. I'm not going to disturb you. Yes? At night, this is the time I'm going to teach you. This is the time I'm going to educate you. So this Salatul Layl that we say pray it and do the A'mal and things like that, all of these things is not there for the sake of just thawab, in the sense of obtaining thawab from heaven and that kind of thing. The real thawab is training. That's the thawab. And if we're being trained at night, then that's the beautiful thing. If we are reformed the next day, you know that that Salatul Layl and that process has positively occurred. And if it hasn't occurred, then it's just a ritual where the tongue is only moving. Salawat. Five minutes and I'll do the Maktal. I just want to end with a beautiful interpretation by Ibn Arabi. And this is in the verse where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا يَقُولُونَ وَاحْجُرْهُمْ حَجْرًا جَمِيلًا. And bear patiently what they say and avoid them with a kind of beautiful patience or a beautiful avoidance. So some people asked yesterday, how do prophets become patient? This is the proof for you, that he gained his patience at night. He learned to be patient at night and applied it in the daytime, right? Ibn Arabi's interpretation is very nice. He says the meaning of this verse, the verse about patience, he says that this is a divine spiritual order to the Prophet. Why is it a divine spiritual order? It's to propel the Prophet to develop his soul. But the question some of you asked yesterday is how? This is the answer he gives. He says it means restrain your soul, wahbis nafsaka. Restrain your soul. We used restrain yesterday. The intellect is to restrain. Restrain your soul from recklessness. Taish. Don't be frivolous. Don't be reckless with your behavior and your words and your intellect. And restrain your soul from disturbance. Okay? Al-irtirab. When we are disturbed with anxiety, we maybe whispers of shaitan, whatever is there, Prophet Allah is saying, control yourself. Don't listen to other things. Rather, he says, move towards the seeking of sustenance from Allah and pay attention to what is whispered to you by Allah through Jibreel. Strengthen your soul. Okay, qawwi nafsaka, strengthen your soul. So Ibn Arabi, he looks at these verses more so about how the Prophet is being taught metaphysically and spiritually. And we, as I said, I think one of the most common questions today, not just because we're in a modern technological environment and we're always rushing about, is when people ask that question every single year. Every single year I hear this question, and you've heard it. I go to Umrah, I go to Hajj, I go to Ziyarat, I don't see any change, or the change lasts a week. Same question all the time. Every single time do I have to do Amal? Okay, I'll do Amal, go to the masjid. Every time this question is there. And the reason this question comes, or the reason why, after how many prayers we have done, and however many majalis we have attended, the reason why this question comes is because we have not investigated, at least at a community level. In the Sufi tafsir, it's there. But at a community level, we've never asked these questions, the bold questions, that what was happening in the Prophet's soul, and explain how he was exactly taught. What's the technique? So we don't ask the questions. So we don't get the answers. But here, I am humbly, very humbly, trying to share with you from my small knowledge these techniques, what I have learned, and this is on the basis of the work of our respected ulama. Salawat. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. In this night, we are losing the beloved companions of Al-Husayn al-Islam. Yesterday, we lost the messengers of Al-Husayn al-Islam, like Muslim ibn Aqil, Qais ibn Mushir. And in Karbala, it wasn't, of course, just the beloved family of Al-Husayn al-Islam. What I find astounding, especially when I look at my own life, is people from all backgrounds were ready to sacrifice their life for Al-Husayn. This has always inspired me. Take John, the freed slave of Abu Dhar. He was an African slave with no wealth, no belongings. He's free. What does he do with his life? Maybe he would be in a position that I want to lead my life, I'm free. John himself, as it is reported in some of our classical sources, he tells Al-Husayn alayhi salam that I don't care about wealth. I don't care now that I'm a free man. What I care about is sacrificing my life for you, my Mawla. From all backgrounds, the caravan of Hussein is not just for Muslims, is not just for a particular color skin. The caravan of Hussein is for everyone, whatever their status. Another person is Habib ibn Mudahir. Habib ibn Mudahir appeared to be more of an older companion of Al-Husayn al-Islam, living through the times of previous Imams. He himself, as a notable of Kufa, regardless of his age, he goes to Husayn alayhi salam and he says, may my life be sacrificed for you. I am at the mercy of you. Zuhair ibn Qayn, another companion of Husayn alayhi salam. This I find very interesting. Zuhair himself repeatedly is telling Husayn alayhi salam the following. He says, Husayn alayhi salam, I don't care if I go onto the battlefield more than once. I'd rather be killed 1,000 times. Why? So I have the opportunity to serve you and to be killed again. And what love did he have for the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam? The love that he had, this is Tariq al-Tabari in Kitab al-Irshad. He says that indeed Allah should stop and repel the killing of your soul. He's saying, Ya my Mawla, I am praying to Allah to make sure that nobody kills you, O Hussein. And not only kills you, but these beautiful souls, young souls of your household, who are the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. The love that he had was a genuine love, not by lips, but it was a love which he was ready to put his body on the line, his wealth on the line, and his future on the line. When we look at Karbala, I think to myself, yes, I am living here. Yes, wife and children, we are here. But if I say I'm a lover of the Qur'an and Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, am I prepared to sacrifice those parts of my life which I hold dear? The end result of these beautiful companions is there in one of our ziyarat. It's Assalamu ala dima is-sa'ilat. It means peace be upon you, O flowing or gushing blood. In that Ziyaratul Nahiya, peace is not just given to the names. It's not Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Peace is given to the blood of the shuhada that flowed on the streets of Kufa. that flowed on the plains of Karbala. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Rabbana la taj'alna ma'a qawmi dhalimin. O Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask you to please give us a strength and knowledge to learn from the Qur'an, from our beloved Prophet. O Allah, he is our uswatul hasana. He is our best model. So please, Allah, give us the confidence to explore this experience of the Prophet for the sake of our family and children. O Allah, please forgive our sins, our marhumin sins, and please give us the strength to help all those who are ill and oppressed in the world, inshallah. Surah Al-Fatiha, please. Matam al-Husayn. Ya Husayn. Ya Husayn.
اسے لگاؤ تم سے بھی پہلے مرنے جائے گا اس کا بیٹا، جی بھر کے دیکھ لے وہ اپنے پسر کا چہرہ، کم وقت رہ گیا ہے جا کر اسے بتاؤ، رہا ہے اکبر سینے اسے لگاؤ، آ رہا ہے اکبر سینے اسے لگاؤ، آ رہا ہے اکبر سینے اسے لگاؤ، یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین
یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین اس وقت جب کہ زینب دربار میں گئی تھی، خاری نمازیوں سے محفل سجی ہوئی تھی، ظالم یہ پوچھتا تھا غازی تیرا کہاں ہے، بالوں سے منہ چھپا کر زینب یہ کہہ رہی تھی، اے میرے بابا جان ہو رہی ہے اذان، سر چھپاؤ کہاں، اے میرے بابا جان ہو رہی ہے اذان، سر چھپاؤ کہاں، مجمع عام میں بے وطن بے امان آ گیا کاروان، اے میرے بابا جان ہو رہی ہے اذان، سر چھپاؤ کہاں، میں بھی ہوں مرضیہ بنت خیر النساء، میرے لہجے میں ہے بابا تیری ادا، نام زینب میرا تو نے جو رکھ دیا، دے دے اپنی زبان، اے میرے بابا جان ہو رہی ہے اذان، سر چھپاؤ کہاں، بابا جان میری دا مانگتی رہ گئی، بام و در سج گئے جیتے جی مر گئی، حلقہ شام میں نام سن کر میرا مر گیا ناتواں، اے میرے بابا جان ہو رہی ہے اذان، سر چھپاؤ کہاں، ہاتھ کانوں پہ ہے نیل گالوں پہ ہے، اور نشان جو سکینہ کے شانوں پہ ہے، ہر نشان سے یہی آ رہی ہے صدا، بابا جان اے میرے بابا جان ہو رہی ہے اذان، سر چھپاؤ کہاں، شام عاشور سے شام کوفہ تلک میں نے مانگا نہیں ہے خراج فدک، میری چادر سے ہے
میری ماں کا سکون سن لے ظالم جہاں اے میرے بابا جان ہو رہی ہے اذان سر چھپاؤں کہاں بابا جان یہ تیرا آخری تھا بیان تیری چادر بچا یہ غازی جوان مر گیا باوفا چھن گئی ہے ردا کہتی ہے بیبیاں عباس 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 رک نہ پایا میرے باوفا کا وہ سر نو کے نیزے سے آنے لگا خاک پر بہن کو در بدر دیکھ کر ننگے سر سہ نہ پایا جوان عباس 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 توجہ زیارہ السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوسيين السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليك يا قريب القربى سلطان أبا الحسن مولانا علي بن موسى الرضا السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن السلام عليك يا رحمة وبركاته اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقاعدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين